Hey there, you're watching a sneak peek from the Everything EV podcast. If you like what you hear and want to catch the entire episode, head over to Spotify or Apple Music and find us by searching for the Everything EV podcast. Enjoy!
Excellent. Right, so I'm joined today by Osman Boyner, the chairman, CEO, founder of BEDEO Group. Thank you for taking your time out today to talk to us.
Thank you.
Could you just give me a quick overview of the history of the company and how you came about and how you're now evolving sort of the technology for electric vehicle conversions?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm an electronic engineer by training. I studied the Imperial years ago. It's now 30 years, in the 90s. And one of the things when I was studying with a research project that's more like copy and paste stuff in the 90s that we were doing on lithium-ion batteries. That was the first years that Sony, Panasonic, they were coming up with lithium-ion batteries. They were putting it in these Discmans. I don't know if you remember this huge things underneath, putting lithium-ion batteries. So that kind of, I had done that. And then in the early 2000s, I came across a lithium-ion producer in Germany, 2004, and a startup from a technological institute, a Fraunhofer Institute, and I invested in them. And that brought me sort of 2006-07, we exited from that investment, but 6-7, that the improvement in energy density levels of battery technology will be making big changes in certain industries in the world, what we would call in the business school disruptive changes. And clearly the disruption, reading, was that automotive would be one of the highly disrupted industry. Of course, the propulsion of that energy density improvement was coming from the consumer electronics industry. That's sort of the puller of it. And in 07, 08, when I sort of started looking at the automotive and started investing into it and electric vehicle powertrains, just to give you a snapshot, there were three big lithium-ion producers in the world. And they were the three big was 90%, and they were shared between among themselves, Sony, Panasonic, BYD. So people now talk a little about BYD, but at that time they were mostly a battery cell producer. And they were doing it immensely cheap out of China, good technology and cheap out of Shenzhen. And actually that was the beginning of also in the first part of where I started this business, is I became a BYD distributor for Turkey. I met the chairman, very, very brilliant person, very visionary at that time. And then he went into cars from the cells, a very, very good idea. And of course, with China also supporting electric vehicle, the absence of internal combustion engine. You know the story, I don't have to tell it to you, what happened in the last 15 years. So with these ideas in 09, I started BEDEO. And the idea was, can we do something that's not being done in the automotive space? And that was the powertrains. So automotive companies were building vehicles, but they didn't know what an electric powertrain was. So they were used to this internal combustion engines, differentials, gearboxes. They knew all about that for the last 100 years. But when you said electric powertrain, they didn't have the people nor the capability in-house. So we thought this must be a differential. They said, let's start working on this. And as we started sort of building powertrains, you have to put it in vehicles. And light commercial vehicles, for me, sounded at that time the most applicable area, an area where we could grow. Of course, at similar times in California, another gentleman decided to apply EV powertrains into luxury in Lotuses. So that was kind of a similar timing there, but that the luxury segment could pay, and of course a lot of different ecosystem there. We know which company that is, and that is the one that survived really when you look the last 15 years, successfully survived in this industry that has made a difference is Tesla. So we will sort of start on the part of light commercial vehicles, how this could be applied. And in the sort of the 10 years, the first 10 years, 09 to 2019, was a lot buying diesel vehicles from manufacturers and converting them, zero mileage vehicles, and selling them to fleets. That was our business model. In 19, we changed it and kind of a bit sort of started producing for, at that time, Peugeot Citroën, today known as Stellantis. We started producing their large van, the e-Boxer. And last year, we've kind of taken our expertise and brought it into the second-hand market. So now we do aftermarket conversions, which we hadn't done. I mean, people always thought, oh, converters, you do aftermarket. But the last 15 years, we've done always new vehicles. And we started looking at this huge, on the large van size, this huge secondary market across Europe, France, Netherlands, UK, Turkey, looking at these vehicles and converting them, 3 years, 5 years old vehicles, converting them, giving them a second life. Hence the name Reborn Electric.
Yeah.
And of course, under that, we've looked at sort of this the iconic vehicle space, and we have sort of Defender as our first vehicle there. So whatever where we can add value with our electric powertrain, our experience, we'd like to. And this, we've made a boat. We have a nice boat in the Amsterdam canals. Same thing. It's the same powertrain. So it's electric powertrains are applicable, as you know, to anything that moves.
Yeah. Why, given your global base, basically, various offices, and you're obviously being founded in Turkey, etc., have you ended up basing yourselves actually here in the UK?
I guess the dean of the Imperial College EE department will be very happy, my ex-teacher, if I said it was Imperial. But of course, that's affinity. But what we noticed in the sort of the early past, 2010-15, the sort of, I call it, the electric vehicle development has seen so far two big waves. One, there was this 08-12, it was a big wave, and then 12 to 15-16, it sort of silenced. And then with the Dieselgate thing, 15-16, it took, with COVID, it became, peaked. And then last year we saw that crashing back again. And we probably will see in the next 3-4 years another wave come when the regulations are getting... Well, it will. I mean, I think, people had even doubts in the first wave that all this will not continue. But the technology, science doesn't lie. No. Behaviors can differ, but the science, the efficiency numbers are there. So it's a no-brainer. This industry is going. That's, I think, part of the trust as we. So and it will be. When people in 08, 09 in the first wave were saying, "Oh, by 15 we'll have 50% of the market will be electric." No, and I don't think by 35, 40 we'll achieve the goals that people are setting. These are not realistic. There's a transition, and even in the transition, if you go from 3% to 6%, you double. Although it's still a small share. So. The 10-15 period, UK did, and that was one of the first countries we came to look at out of Turkey. They did a lot of incentives, clever regulation for electric vehicles. They said, okay, we have gone out of the petrol thing. That was, I think, the late 2007-8 when UK started being a net importer of petrol. So they said, okay, how can we build more electricity generation through renewables? That was a good decision. In France, for example, that they never had to make that decision because 80% of their electricity came from nuclear. So that's also the reason the first wave, as you will recall, Renault, Nissan Group was one of the first really companies, manufacturers going into electric because it made sense. In France, there is ample electricity free at night that you can use. You don't turn off the nuclear station. It wasn't the same thing as in the UK. So with this renewable strategy, the government at that time also pushed this plug-in car grant, plug-in van grant, and then TfL London was an example because they did the congestion charge exemption. So all this, and it attracted us. There were a couple of companies doing conversions. So there was an expertise also, that is, and I think today when we're sitting here in Farnham, the company we in 2021 bought is an electric motor inverter supplier, a component, but there is a lot of engineering, electrical engineering expertise. I think government, long answer to your short question, government incentives, a good place to be, and good engineering. That I think there's the two reasons why we said we didn't go to Germany. My first foreign language is German. I went to German school. So I compared it. Would we go to the Munich area? Because also there is a lot of stuff there. Also, probably the UK is more international, more exposed, and it is an island. So you see, you can have more penetration. One should have more penetration of electric vehicles on an island than on a mainland. But we have not. I mean, that that sort of thing the government that started, as we were talking before, that's sort of coming back 15, 16, and hasn't been really on the correct path. But the idea is that UK, if we want to keep the competitiveness of this industry, one thing is encouraging vehicles on the road. And the second thing is, of course, to encourage companies doing R&D. So it's a bit linked. It's not directly linked. So if you can create a momentum of more electric vehicles on the road, then you have sort of their eyes there. It creates a whole pull in the industry. The concentration is there. Yeah. However, you can do it still. You can give a lot of R&D support, which the government is giving. But when we compare now, the hesitancy is there. We see more hesitancy, more difficulty. I mean, we do also get government grants. I think we should be getting more. I learned about a company, a major, I'm not going to call the name, but it's a household name in the industry automotive segment. They said last month, we are not applying for grants. It is so much bureaucracy and headache. We prefer just using, and you have to then improve it, this, that. So there's so much bureaucracy around it that we prefer using our own money than getting grants. And that is, if you come to a point like that, that's not good for industry to be, especially in an industry area where we need to be. I mean, of course, competition is China, but still competition is other European countries, especially after the exit. There should be more of this in the UK than less of it. Yeah.
We only need to look of late to some recent failures. So Lunaz, both their commercial and obviously their fine vehicle repowering, Arrival as well. So we are in a, I wouldn't say negative point of view, but we're not as positive, unfortunately, in the UK that we'd like to be.
The EV market, of course, the downturn of the Lunazes and the Arrivals is more global EV downturn rather than I wouldn't sort of tie that exactly to the UK, but it is a global downturn. I mean, I was a Fisker distributor in the first life of Fisker, and Henrik tried to do it again, and I think he has failed or is failing again. I mean, it's sad. Yeah. It is that, and with his good intention. I mean, he's a good guy, he's a good designer. He's also in the first one, he's done mistakes. I lost some money, but you see, if something is not sticking, then it's also sort of environmental. There is an environmental factor as well. So, but in new technology deployment, you always have nothing goes straight. You have zigzags, and I mean, what we've seen as a bubble, I call the bubble 2021, the SPAC bubble. These were not normal. I mean, when people who SPAC these companies and make valuations of, I remember Arrival, I think came out at 8 billion and then went up to 13 billion with not even one vehicle sold. That's also an exaggeration. And that kind of goes into the sort of the spirit and the blood of the company. Then that money comes in, you need to spend it, you overpay a lot of people. It's also not good for the people in the industry sort of charting a normal course. We've never gone through that sort of public cheap money. So we're trying to make money. So suddenly our employee cost started jumping and we had to say no because we can't afford. And then what happens is kind of this bubble splashes and because it leaves a sort of a bad mark across and I think some companies, we've seen Proterra last summer fail in California, an old company. Proterra with 400 million revenue. Proterra was doing battery manufacturing and a bus manufacturer. So they were around since the first wave. I remember driving the first Proterra bus in 2009 in California. They were a bus manufacturer, and then they were selling the EV powertrains. Very good company. And if they fail, and they've initiated a lot of failures of other companies because they were providing their equipments to other companies. So people who have based their supply chain onto them, they started failing. So I think Volta said the failure of Volta was, they said, because of Proterra. Probably it was because of lack of also demand. But lack of demand comes from lack of regulatory decisiveness. So a lot of trucks and etc. You need to put regulation, city, outside city, very clear. So then the operators will have to change the technology. When they see an indecisiveness, then they say, let's wait. That's also a problem with technology. If you wait 5 years, perhaps that's a better thing. I mean, put yourself into the shoes of the operator. They're thinking, if I wait 5 more years, then I'll get a better. These are not cheap things. Electric vehicles are more expensive. So perhaps I wait another 5 years, I get a better technology. So it's kind of, regulator is an important player in that sort of new technology adaptation.
And with the UK changing the rules and pushing the date back by 5 years, that hasn't helped.
Well, they haven't really pushed it back 5 years. The tail end they push, but I feel it. Why? Because the noise it has created, the sort of the psychology has hurt much more than what they've done. And when you look, and also after they announced it, they tried to recover it. They said, oh, actually, we haven't changed much. And that's true. They haven't changed that much. I mean, there's still the inclination of the sort of the adaptation that you need to do. It's not because it's not one day, oh, you go in 35 from 0 to 100. It's a phased-in curve. So when you look at it, that curve has not changed. Sort of the tail end has changed. Why would you do it? I think it shows a sign of reality. There won't be any specific... I'm a big believer, and it is wrong to say nothing is allowed. You can say 80%, 90%, but you still have to give an allowance to something. You know, you can't say the whole world is going to be EV. It's like saying the whole world is going to be diesel. So you have to give an allowance. It's also like we are a society. You know, it's not... yes, okay, it's harmful, etc. But there will be applications where these vehicles will be needed.
Yeah, there'll be SAF fuel, so there'll probably be zero-emission tailpipe mandated. But how that is derived is
going to be a question. But even putting such strict, say 95%. I mean, because if you put 90%, then probably you can put 30. But because it's 100%, you have to constantly push it, and that kind of lessens the credibility. Often.
When we talk about, obviously, research and development and uniqueness, one of the reasons why you invested and you've ended up buying Protein here is because they've got a very unique offering. Do you want to just talk about the in-wheel technology? This is an overview. I'll be talking about specifically later.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that, you know, we have, think about an automotive, a vehicle. A vehicle, traditionally, we've put in one internal combustion engine, and the idea was at that time, 150 years ago, was that the oil is the highest energy density material we know around that can be, you know, carried and safely guarded. So we put it in a chamber, we explode it, we create a motion. And with this motion, you drive the wheels and you go. So you can't make a few of them. So you have to put one in the middle, and you kind of use a differential, a gearbox to sort of go to the wheels. So yes, that's the correct structure. This is the most efficient structure. When you say we're going to electric, the first reaction of the industry, normal, because there's so much invested into these platforms, is take out the ICE, put the electric in. Yes, that's a good jump. That was the first jump. But when you look at, you say, I'm designing a vehicle from scratch. I don't have any investment, any income. What do? You go, if the technology exists, you go to the in-wheel. You go to the wheel because that's where you need the motion. So if you can go to the wheel without a gearbox, without the need of gear change, then that's the ideal. Then it's just two cables come out. You have a battery and you have a computer. You have a car. I mean, you need steering. In ideal condition, in-wheel motor can also handle the steering. In braking, in most of the conditions, you will still have brakes as a safety, but in-wheel motors will do the braking as well. So it is really, I don't want to say miracle, but it's the most logical device to put in a new automotive platform. So when I sort of started thinking this early 2010s, I started looking in-wheel motors for our own applications. And, you know, we started sourcing from Protein, and then we ended up investing in Protein. But the idea that when you look at the in-wheel and you put an in-wheel in a vehicle, I don't think there's anything turning back. it is giving you the most user space, the cheapest production as a vehicle, not as a unit. So then it's only time when this will be adopted. Of course, because it is a whole vehicle decision, and vehicle platforms are not easy decisions in OEMs, the cycle of introduction takes long time. Hence, I mean, Protein has been around 08 or 09. We're at generation 5 now. So there will be generation 6, 7. But it is now newly, I mean, you've seen the Hyundai thing that came out in November and then the CS. So people are understanding, actually, now we have to move to the corners. Number one, that is the logical. Number two, it's suddenly seen as a differentiator now. Compare to the cheap vehicles, e-axle vehicles built in China. It is a differentiator, or shall we go to the inwards? There is a logic to it, and you wait out enough time, you see a lot of vehicles will be in-wheel motors. Are there challenges? There's always challenges, new technology, economies of scale, adaptation. There's all these challenges, but hopefully we talk 10 years later. You see, I mean, my question is, what percentage of the electric vehicles, hence what percentage of the global, if we're talking 1,900 million in early 2030s vehicles produced every year, what percentage of that will be in wheel motor and when? So when is the curve? That is the interesting. We know it's there. It's again, it's one of these things, no-brainer. But then once people start adopting, then it goes. It's not a linear curve. It goes like the slow, and then boom, it takes off.
Yeah. From a commercial point of view as well, that must allow more space inside the vehicles?
Yes, it's huge. That is the biggest benefit. I mean, it gives a lot of space. And again, when you buy a vehicle, you're actually, unless you buy something specific, niche, performance car, what you want to buy is space. You want your family to sit. You want to be able to sit in the back. So you're looking at the cubic meter of space you're buying. An in-wheel motor really enables the OEM to provide better user space to the client, whether this is for inner space, whether it is luggage space, whether it is to put more batteries, whatever they want to use that. But it's just putting a lot of this, as you know, the motor inside, we have also the inverter. So electronics of the vehicles also, driving that motor is also in the wheel. So you have the battery pack, you can park around, and then you have the vehicle. So, of course, customers we've seen, they've gone to pods, they've gone to these user areas, you have this MPV kind of vehicles. I mean, there's a lot of things. Or you can put more batteries. We have this MEV vehicle, put a lot of batteries, because you have space now, you can bring the whole vehicle lower, hence you get an aerodynamic benefit, hence better WLTP, hence either less battery or more range. So if battery is the most expensive part of the vehicle, and in a normal vehicle, you kind of start shrinking the vehicle. So I always say, you can produce a C segment vehicle with a B footprint. That is it's a kind of an enabler for the industry.
You work a lot with Stellantis. What's their thinking about this way of electrifying vehicles?
I mean, like every OEM, everybody's interested. I mean, we've talked with all the OEMs. We don't have with Stellantis, we have a special relation on the commercial vehicles. We've been building for them commercial vehicles, but with in-wheel motors, we are in basically in every OEM. They see this technology. There are others like us. We call ourselves, and I think we are the global leader in this technology. But there are all OEMs are interested. It is their questions. They want demo car. I mean, we're doing many programs with different OEMs. The interest level is there. It's the adaptation. It is because the real benefit of in-wheel motors comes when you design the vehicle from scratch with in-wheel motor in mind. Not if you apply it to an existing platform. It can save you a lot of space, and it makes a lot of sense. Like that's the reason we are in the second-hand market doing Defender, because it makes a lot of sense to put four wheels and empty the whole mechanical lot inside. But the benefit is if you design the vehicle from scratch around that, and it is, and everybody's now, I think, seeing it. I mean, I congratulate as many things. Of course, the Koreans, they've come out very vocal about it. Hyundai on this, and that they're adopting this technology. It's very welcoming because they're always advanced technology thinkers. And it's again, as I said, it's a matter of time because the logic, the numbers are there. So you can't, you have pots of resistance because of incumbent investments. That's usually what happens in technology changes. You have the resistance, but then it is adapted.
Do you think a little bit like the radiator on an electric vehicle is now superfluous, almost that central engine or motor will almost be superfluous in, as you say, 5-10 years' time or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's a percentage thing. So we are seeing now the adaptation more in specific applications where we're solving problems, and then vehicle design starts there. Of course, today our solution is more expensive than an e-axle when you compare the volumes. I mean, there are 15 million e-axles produced, 50 million vehicles, so we are very low in compared to that. So economies of scale, so we are expensive on that, and it will get cheaper. I mean, it is a technology adaptation. It just, and then there is a lot of externalities you can't see. So you just, you sit tight, you watch the adaptation happen, and you do your best, trying to educate people and also improve your technology because, I mean, there's no thing in the world that you're alone on anything. So there are plenty of people kind of trying to also compete. So you try to do your best, you try to sort of take your experience and put as much as it in, try to make the power in the motor larger, cheaper. All these are the nice challenges.
Yes. Talk about challenges, and probably just to wrap up, where do you actually see yourself and probably this unique element of the sector in, say, 5 years' time? Let's not go too far because I think there's too many external influences.
Well, I mean, there is you can see this. We have a vehicle business and we have a component business. So we are kind of deeply entrenched in the electric vehicle powertrain. So as component or as full turnkey, full powertrain. And we want to be here. We don't want to compete with the OEMs. The OEMs are doing mass. There is a lot of need for smaller runs. I mean, smaller runs in thousands units a year. So smaller runs that OEMs say, oh, we don't want to do it. It's too expensive to put it in-house. They give it out. Those are the, we have a good production base in Turkey. We are opening a new production in France. We hopefully, if the environment gets better, we'd like to open here as well. So kind of a bit closer to the client base. So adaptation of these vehicles, we see a lot of kind of merit on the drivetrain applications, EV drivetrain applications. This be first-hand with OEMs or second-hand from the market. So there's a vehicle business. We see it will only grow as people need these adaptations. And then there's a component business. In-wheel motor is one component. Hopefully we can add more components next to it. We know EV powertrains, and we want to be one of the suppliers in the world providing full turnkey solutions as well as components for this powertrain.
Excellent. I think on that note, thank you for your time today. We're looking forward to actually being able to drive in a minute your reborn electric Defender and also one of your commercial vehicles.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this clip from the Everything EV podcast. For more engaging discussions and the full episode experience, head over to Spotify or Apple Music and search for the Everything EV podcast. See you there.